As much as I want to do this, the last time I did a front-wheel drive spec series, my pedals broke. What do you make of this, Azatec Tony Kanaan pedals? Are you up for the challenge?
De tyske bedragere ved intet om glæderne ved turbiler. Men forstærk venligst mine kabler.
Very well then. Let's get started. Welcome to Season 5 of the Fast Track. As per usual, a new season comes a new car, new tracks, new race format, and new to this season, a slightly different upload cadence. The Patina Nation EK Civic Cup will be hosted on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. British time. As has been the case with last season, and the season before that, I still intend to upload all of my guides 2 days in advance of race day, meaning that these videos will now be published on Sundays as opposed to Mondays. Make your Garfield jokes now because I'm done laying the groundwork and want to get into the first track of this series, the Circuit Zandvoort. This place's origin story is actually quite unique, as it's one of the few tracks that started out as a street circuit, but evolved into a purpose-built racetrack. While there were a few races run on Zandvoort streets before World War II, the rise of the Mad Mustache Man's Mafia and his subsequent occupation of the Netherlands put a halt to that. But in the fog of war, the ambitious mayor of the town, a fellow named Henry van Alphen, would put into motion a plan to have the track built. Under the guise of preventing the Allies from using the northern beaches as an entry point to mainland Europe, he had German soldiers demolish a majority of the property in the northern part of town, and later had them pave a so-called Paradenstrasse to be used for parades after winning the war. But we all know how that song and dance goes, so that road ended up being used as the front stretch for the track instead. Now with nobody left to bother him, Henry tapped pre-war racing staple Sammy Davis to pen the rest of the track's layout. It would be finished in 1948, and F1 would visit the track on and off from 1952, 1950 if we're counting non-championship races, to 1985. And with a few tweaks to the track as time went on, the Dutch GP would return to the global spotlight in 2021. With the track now introduced, I can finally talk a bit about the car. The EK9 generation of the Honda Civic Type R is the first in a long lineage to bear the title worthy of Honda's top-of-the-line performance machines. This race-modified version that we'll be using comes packed with a tuned version of Honda's B16B engine, putting out what looks like an underwhelming 240 horsepower on paper, but combined with both the VTEC system, variable valve timing and lift electronic control for those unfamiliar, as well as how light the car is at only a little over 1,200 kilograms, and you have a recipe for a car that provides a driving experience that can only be described as driving a big front-wheel drive go-kart, complete with tripoding through certain corners. Touring car aficionados are going to have a blast, but I will admit that I'm not too familiar with this discipline of racing, and it will take some time getting used to. But regardless, I still plan on giving it my all throughout this series, starting with the first hot lap. The lap begins with a sharp hairpin. Brake around the 100 board, hug the inside as much as you can without touching the curb, and get back on the power as soon as the corner opens up. Brake and flick the car through turn 2 using the throttle, before braking and downshifting again for 3, taking it in a very similar way to turn 1. After that, take a bit of a breather down this not-so-straight straight. Hold the car in 4th gear and use the end of the outside guardrail for your braking reference into 7. Keep to the inside as much as possible and power out of the corner. Brake a little bit past the overhead gate into 8, pitching the car in with a bit of throttle and hitting as much curb as the car can handle. The incorrect sign at the entry to turn 9 is probably your only braking reference, so get a measure for how big it gets before you need to brake. Get as close as you can to the curbs without touching them, and bring the car back over for 10. I use the track marshals on the outside edge of the road for my reference, and hold the car as close to the inside curb as I can, and gunning it a little bit before it ends. The sign at that corner is also incorrect. Brake at the 100 board for turn 11, flick the car in using as little curb as possible and get it set up for turn 12, keeping it as close to the inside as you can. Finally, close out the lap by braking at the 50 board for turn 13, getting on the gas early, and using all of the track you can to carry as much speed through 14 as possible. As with the other front drive cars I've had limited time in, you have to be a lot more delicate on the throttle than you would a rear drive car, as torque steer is very noticeable when you mash the gas coming out of corners with a front end that isn't fully gripped up. Really doesn't help that most of the places around here don't have much proper runoff in case you make a mistake too. Lifting slightly and reapplying power can help you in a pinch sometimes, but other times that won't be enough. Another thing to note is that the rear tires on a front drive car are just kinda there, and you basically have to make sure that they aren't lagging behind the fronts when cornering, but at the same time not sliding out, as you'll lose time all the same like you would in a rear drive car. Your alignment settings and your rear roll bar will be your best friend in this regard. Finally, the race format for this series is exactly the same as it was for the F3 series, but now only the top 6 are inverted for the second race, and every session has now been extended by 5 minutes, meaning that you'll need to fuel for 20-minute races now, which, as always, I'll have the magic numbers here. And that's all I have for this first week. If you have any tips for driving this car, or front-wheel drive cars in general, let everyone know in the comments. Heaven knows I'll need them. But aside from that, join me next week when we take on Cadwell Park. Until then, like and subscribe for more, good luck, and I'll catch you later. Oh yeah, by the way, the reason I called those signs incorrect is because on every map I could find of this track, the straight after turn 3 counts for 3 turns instead of 2, and turn 8 is called Master's Box, not turn 9. Kunos, please fix.